very much, and for all the support she's given us all over the years. Thank you.
Now, I know you're only out 2 months after 10 years in jail, but do you see much change in thinking in Belfast Republican circles?
I think signs are good, that people have become less entrenched in positions and more. I think it's a very, very progressive outlook people have.
Bhí mé glas na tríóide mar bhac léin ins na seachtódaí agus an cara ba bhua bhí go an son ná Colleen as Balla Anderson. Agus bhí sé mór le Mairéad Farrell córs na bahiad. So coolla mé hanam, hic mé go raibh sí Bríson. Agus an son an 8 fuair mé comisiún leabhar ílsiú Staid na Bríson, Staid na Man sa Fríson ó Huig. Cuoi níos láireach an son Mairéad Farrell, bhí sé dúrach scailta séir. Bhí sé lántásta, leartlan, agus cá mé bliain goile a tuair cóirte ar an dig agus a chur aithne irthe, chur aglah irthe, agus chur an aithne irthe. Go dtí mí feara 8 agus bin an nóiarna a chonig mé mar an son, cúpla teach na níoch son, Harla Gibraltar.
Last Sunday's gunning down of 3 unarmed suspects on the Rock of Gibraltar. Another bloody incident in Britain's anti-terrorist war, followed by an extraordinary saga of misinformation.
Mairéad Farrell, Danny McCann and Sean Savage were highly skilled activists.
The government have issued a statement just reiterating our concern that 3 unarmed Irish people were shot dead in circumstances which would seem to indicate that they could have been arrested.
We all know they were dedicated mass murderers who were ruthlessly involved in a bombing operation.
Well, Mairéad Farrell, a controversial figure in that she was a female IRA volunteer, probably the single most high-profile such person an identifiable person of the Long War. And as such, that and I suppose the extremity of what occurred in Gibraltar has given herself and that incident a long notoriety.
Your path is either jail or death. People are under no illusions when they are involved in the Republican movement, that these are the 2 options.
That's one of the tragedies. You know, the famous quotation that to the people of West Belfast she was seen as a patriot, to the British she was seen as a terrorist, and to her family, friends, she was seen as another victim of Irish history.
Honnig mission seo go Bell firste stocha 9-5 den géadúir. Agus chur mé an son, I suppose, an bubble. Agus reversúlan agus tá slóch sé do thuile. I mean, is don go mar chuach rí, ní rí golóirslite raibh tarlúint an sar gach taobh. Agus is an sonna coolla mé anam bhréad an géadúir. Seo ban bhí ar ís lom féinnig. Bhí mar ag an óir céanna ban rialta ar scoil ar a bas lítrum dá máthir a chuig ó thuig as ar bhacad a maithirse a chuig sé ó dheas. Agus an sá 9-7 mar a dúir fí miise san áilscoil im leat lia agus bhí sé I brús an árhacha. Agus de chuir sé chuoine me chana héamh go bhfuil sin cad a thug an sonnaí, cad a thug an son miise. Agus is bhfuil an freigra ná den chuid a smó. An tochaí inar bharmar an. So tá man so féchant a bhétamist, bhfuil éon clí go bhétamist tréis an méid seo ama. You know, brethir an duine, brethir an man ógsan a bhí lán de bhaig, a bhí lán dairíir a bhí tucha das na rudí thug soas a saoil a bhí réig, saoil daoine eile thógant leis, ar bhatha leis na rudí ar creid séúnta. So tá mid an sóthar mór céanna ach tá sé códifriúil saoil eile ar fada sé héanaid. You know, dúirt LP Hartley in Uorscéile, the past is another country. They do things differently there. Tá sé sin tá sé sin fear, tá sé le feiscin an so.
My own family had Republican background, but living on the Falls Road, I saw internment, I saw the British soldiers. That in itself, you know, you became aware, right, you know, I have to do something here, you know, this just isn't right, and you find yourself, you want to become more and more involved. I just got a political education from looking around.
So seo ceartlár bhóthar na bháil. Seo hit na stráidna inar tógach Mairéad Farrell, you know, bhí siopa beag ag a hathair hí san seo sa Pound Loney. Is ón geantar so a bheith a hathair. So bhain sí leis an gahar ó góchas ar nóid bascúnta lítrama dá máthair, agus an sothar bhóthar na bháil a bhar sí an céad beidir sé bliana seach bliana dá hóige. Gach Sara nuair bhí Mairéad óg, dágach muintear Farrell a dig I méil ferste. Is héad é sé réanda síra go cúnta lítrama. Is cuoine Seán Ó Suilleabháin Mairéad Farrell a tac go béal anna bhór agus í óg.
Scosúil dúirt sí lom gur chaisi chuile lehananta sír a saoirí. I méil na hamórlinn na mechéarnas na gheafnís nó uanta in rumar snáb leis na bólans bhí an sin síle an sinne í freisin. So chaisi chuidsmór a leanta óid I méil na hamór. Agus is an sin is doch chaisi ar a chean ahir Johnny Gaffney. Bhí Johnny Gaffney go níomh chuch na sírse. Agus dúirt Mairéad hain gur ó tionchar an bhór ag sin éisi, chaise tréisi I Brisún. Bhí Mairéad sinsear bhí sí rins sé bhí dísna mar sin nuair a churú ahar Johnny I Brisún. Fiúháins na trochadtí os na dahatí, ba cheantar poblachtánaach é an cheantar hart ar béal na hamór I riamh. Agus fiúháins na trochadtí bhí go leor daoine bhí go níomh. Is sa fiachtas poblachtánaach a bhí is sa bheatans na trochadtí.
I met this girl, and she was in Armagh. She was in the jail. I said to her, like, what was it really like? Was it really that bad? She was saying, "Oh, it's bad, but everybody, you know, helps each other and it's comradeship and all that." And I says, "Yeah," but it, you know, that always stuck in my mind asking about that.
Inas go leor tafadaí foiime le Mairéad mar haide an leabhar, ach nuair a maraíochaí chuig sé díanarm éisteach le. So dágus an láiscríomhann ar le taobh, ach níor agus riamh a mé aige, níor na starúd ar riamh go deol. Ná ar an amsan, ná ar an tréimhse san. Thahann si go mór le mar chuine, lus go ní réon áras ormsa ach gur ginneach ise asna cúnsaí inar bharse, as stair agus políocht na hÉireann. Cá Brian Feeney a óige I méil ferste chomá. Is hanga mar suas le na chéile le leart fé cad buchain le siúd féna leihananta san.
Because I was a bit older,
Yeah.
I already had sort of formed political ideas and knew what I thought about things and could see political process and development and success. People who were 20, 22 in the early 70s would have supported the civil rights movement, the SDLP, and many would have thought they had achieved success by 73 because you had the housing executive, which ended up discrimination. City councils had been changed. Derry City Council was abolished. A commission was set up. There was the proposals for the power sharing executive. It looked as if it was a political success. If you were younger and working class, you didn't see any of that. You were being stopped and searched by the army all the time. And the role of the army was disastrous, really, from the point of view of British policy. The behaviour of soldiers after 71 was just outrageous, and they acted as recruiting sergeants. So people were understanding about what was going on, but they were very careful about whether or not their children would be swept in. So it wasn't a case of saying that they were morally superior to people who joined the IRA. They just thought the risk was so serious. It was generally expected that you had a life expectancy of 6 months. For someone with her middle class background, it's unusual to be involved, and I suspect it was something to do with the connections the family had in the Lower Falls.
Or if he's a kind of, if he's a well, cad a curse a throw into. Can I have go cur to seems for it? Because the Cooperud, Cooper actra, go more a yin an impressionary. Agus the heck she sheer her son a goni. An Chéadrod ná nói Bombay Street an únsaí a dhéanana díolseoirí Friedna timppel Clonard agus Ictar Bóthar na Bháil. Agus nói an bhríist legach Milan na bí specials a tháinig isteach ins na Carn na Móra agus iad a scuil leo ó machine guns agus curach sráidna umlána trí hinne. Rudelle a bhí béidir a dhéon béidir impression níos móirthe ná tugach the fáilúd curfew ar seo. Rud a hála ná chuig arm na Bretainne isteach chun rúthar dhéanamh ar thithe in Íochtar na Bháil, hí an taire gníomhach sa geantar agus duach rúthir ar an geantar ar na sráid na beaga agus streigar an IRA. Bhí doine scuilar chéile hí na Saidúirdaí agus an IRA scuilar chéile agus curach an counter ar fad fé curfew. Maríoch go leor daoine scuileach go leor daoine chuig na Saidúirdaí isteachas scrusadar na tuthe beaga seo. Na rudí sá tá siad ar nós a bheith inis ar chlí ina cliché sena chatte. A códar son có mór son bhaim ar chuoine ága a bhí an agus a chonig iad ar an delafíise gas réad mother a dánach fola ach mother leis an gorfiú sin. Bhí sí láthair. Conig sé seo. Bhá go leor daoine ó Íochtar na Bháil agus ó Bhóthar na Bháil suas go baile Anderson. Suas go daoine hastáid nó a bhí tócha ag an údarás ag an housing executive. Sin seo tháinig Mairéad Farrell chun cónaí néadaíoch seachtó. Gus tá sé simúl mar Queenlan Mrs. Farrell rádam gur bhogad an sa ná chun éalú os na tribloide, ach ar nói. Ní raibh an áid sa sé os na tribloide. Agus taobh hir an son mar dar mé leis na I dethe a chud cóirde. Bhí arm na Bretainne go mion minic a déanamh sladan ar na tuthe. Bhíoch patróil ar fud na háit an sa. So nuair bhéontlí go raibh Mairéad go raibh sé gar hamach na aonrod ó gná phobal an sa. Bhí sé ina chud ag hegur cónig sé héana dig na facha sin go dtí gur gáach í féin. Agus cuairtar me cheanna chara Jardine Holland a bhí ar an osscoilm agus a bhí anna bhór le Mairéad Farrell chomá. Fiochan cad buchaín léhir féin drá son dá saoil.
For many of us in that time, it was almost a double or triple whammy in terms of upheaval, because as a child you were used to your own little two up, two down, your own little streets, communities, very strong family networks, granny round the corner, auntie up the street, that kind of thing. Yeah. And then of course we were redeveloped, and I think sometimes somebody should look at the fact that that sort of big physical destruction of homes and communities almost occurred at the same time as the conflict started off. It was almost like a perfect storm in a way.
Did you know Mairéad at that stage?
I got to know Mairéad in and around that time. I would say within a year. There were a group of us and we're all very good friends.
Yeah.
And, unbelievably, in times of conflict, you still do all the silly things that girls do. Mairéad and all of us would have, did all the normal things that other kids would do. But the real total transformational event was the introduction of internment in 9th of August 1971. And that just, that just caused in my neighbourhood a complete uprising. You know, the very concept that anyone could be taken, arrested, tortured, and then kept in prison without charge, without a trial, without a judge, without a jury. I mean, even to kids my age, that didn't seem fair. The IRA just grew exponentially.
Were you surprised when Mairéad joined the IRA?
No, not at all. No, I wasn't in the least bit surprised. It was very much a natural progression. A lot of women saw no reason why they just couldn't go straight in, and the IRA were glad to take them.
Carla Machan Starry Rowan O'Donnell. Tá san spéisiach a siúd starin fa Blatánachas, agus Lauriamar Marialler an Tréise son dúsgart na Héireann.
The Republican movement has always had provision for bringing young people into Republican culture, and she was one of that small minority who became not simply an activist, but a leading member of an IRA active service unit. So she would have gone from an ordinary, comparatively comfortable background into the most high-risk environment that could be imagined for someone of our generation. And that is not something an intelligent, thinking person such as herself would have done lightly. And moreover, it would not have been tolerated by the Republican movement. They didn't want Walter Mitty's, they didn't want ineffective people. They would obviously go for the highest calibre activists they could get, and she certainly fulfilled that brief from their perspective.
Bhí roicha, déadach sí gandolasteach na IRA gan bacant an éachar le héanrad politúil. Dul chun na hallscaile, tuaisceart na Héireann ágat, take go Black Lia, dul go Lúndan, dhéon go leor daoine den gúlra céine a le héad. Déadach sí sé le caf. So, you know, IRA will diary gan ceis, no, canna heb go dhéanamh ar son, canna heb go rád ar sásta rudaí ó fásacha faréagnacha a dhéanamh, agus go rád ar sásta leis, a saol féinnig, a chur amhail. In éireach seo sé ghlach Mairéad páirt a bhachtas bumála de chuid an IRA I deanta le Ciaran Doherty agus Sean McDermott. Bhí sé geisteacha buama a leaga in Óstán, Conway Hotel, taobh mother bhéal ferste in Dunmurry.
And I had a funny feeling that day. I remember thinking to myself, this could be the last time I see this bloody place, you know. You'd be nervous. Naturally you're nervous. You're going on a big operation. And in the house we were getting ready with our masks and all. The adrenaline was going, and then we had to drive the whole way with the bombs. Kieran and I went in the van with the bombs, and Sean went in the car. But see, when we hit the Conway, you know, all it is, right, you know what you have to do. Get the job done, you know, and get it done properly.
Thug Mairéad agus Ciaran Doherty na buamaí isteach go dtí an tóstáin, agus nuair phléas siad níor gortaíoch chéine san achtra ach scriosach an tóstáin go hilas go thomláin. Nuair a gabhadh chéan lásan, bhí aige go bhféadach sé bheith mar a bheith an lá, mar a tharla, sin mar a críochnaigh Sean McDermott, maríoch eis an scuileacha. Agus hic sí féinnig cad a bhí an ánda. Go gathach sí chud bha dá saol an chudile do hóige I gilín I bríosú an ardhacha.
Sean's dead totally right, because up until then I was either fooling myself that it wasn't true, hoping it wasn't true, and then when it finally had sunk through that it was, my own capture looks so small against that. Like, I mean, I was a lucky one.
Once na seachtada, you know, vís fós a bhach léin I glas an tríóide agus bhí Mairéad Farrell in ardhacha. Agus beníd na blianta nuair a thosaigh na hagóidí sa fríosún go seachta sé ag dascail siad go léir as policy de chuid na Breitne sé sin le rá. Ná túrfií a hiile stádas politiúil stádas speisialta do bhfuil an IRA nar a bhúnta corpaig ní glachach bhfuil an IRA lena léad. Iúltíadar sna héitblochanna na fér iúltíadar éadaig an phríosún na caithh agus mar sin nuair a bhá plid. Mother leis na sasnaigh le rialtas hasanna is stoim gur ceapadar son go múthadéist an coga leistigh den bríosún i léon áras bheith. Bhriseadéist an IRA leistigh dus na príosúin. Bhí Mairéad ina ceannar inis ar na ban phríosúna de chud na IRA in Ardmhacha. And in long gur a bhís go dtíine go raibh mná leis sa phríosún agus iad ar an agóid chéanna. Agus beidir gur ben rud é ná go raibh a go déadaigh féin ag na mná so ní rád ar siúd ar na plitne. Bhíidir son códing go bháilta chéana agus a bhína fér. Dar leo ní churpa géad, saidúirí bethe dar leo hénig agus bhíidir lerag stádas politúil stádas speisialta.
The Republican movement itself, you know, while it treated us as equals in a certain sense that we were in prison and that, at the same time, they didn't feel that, or not even them, you know, people on the outside in general, society, looked at us as the girls in Armagh, and we shouldn't really be in there, we should be out here and let the men do it, you know. The men are quite capable of doing it and they don't need women to do it. Women aren't supposed to be politically active. We're supposed to be looked after, taken care of. We even thought in the early days that we were an extension. We were always, we're doing this to support the men and the blacks. At the same time, you know, we were on it for political status and we want the political status as much as the men and the blacks.
Cohiach nascana anna láidir idir na mná a bhí ar na gáid. Bhí Mairéad Farrell agus Sinead Moore I downtown le Mairéad sna blianta sa I bríosún Ardmhacha.
Initially, Mairéad was the OC of the wing, but by that stage then she became the jail OC. She was in charge of the whole
jail.
Yeah.
Why, I mean, who appointed her? And I think I remember asking her that, but who appointed her?
Well,
was it outside or was she voted in or would it have been?
Initially came from inside because the people there felt confident with her, and I would say from the start that my impression of Mairéad was just she was always a leader. She was always struck me as being a leader, and she was always to the fore. No matter what we were doing, she would have been there in the forefront doing it with you.
Tá náid sin is dúnta le blianta. Ní rás riomhan son ar bhí sin na phríosún. A chála me is chun leabhart leis an ahar réman ó Morí is cá sé sin blianta fada mar hé plíneach ag na phríosúnaigh. Céféad banna bhíon sa?
Is tá go róthar trocha agus dahead. Hannig mé isteach an seo beidir 3 uair sa teachtain agus beidir níos millice. Ní amháin I gol isteach inas na Killiney agus bheithe ceint lá go príomhateach mar sin dé ach híana isteach is sé seomra telefíse agus chora rahan amach ag an clós lá. Ach de gra ní chuir mé isteach ní chuir mé céisteáil go déireanna go déireanna mar sin dé. Bhí na ceflann sin stís a freisin ag méadú agus ag méadú. Bhí a lán faibanna an agus an ceflann sin idir prisonaí agus údaras faoi ceannas ar an áit agus ceannas ar na prisonaí agus mar sin dé, so bhí ceflann se gcónaíonn sin. Agus an sin hála ó rud millseannach an seo, 7 lá de fiara 1980 agus aine go a tugad ar an é sin. Bhí sin ina líne an thuasan sin le bí a áil agus
na prisúna Mairéad agus na daine.
Agus bhí ofaigí mrá an seo, bhí ofaigí fear an seo agus tháinig na fearisteach agus bhfuil siad éad go trom.
Because we had our own clothes, that was a major thing. We had, any time there was a volunteer killed, we used to have commemoration in the yard. And we would have wore black clothing. And that particular time it was volunteer Delana had been blown up. But had the commemoration as usual and that was it. Everybody went about their business and it was actually the next day. There was a door that joined our wing to A wing, and that opened, and how many? About 30 to 40 male screws, all dressed in red gear, with
rushing in.
Shields and batons, just came rushing in while we were trying to get our dinner, totally taken unawares. We didn't know what was happening.
So they were there to look for these
black clothing, but at the end of the day, it was stuff that had come through the censors, so it was just an excuse to get in and raid in our cells.
So you were all beaten?
We were all manhandled or beaten in some shape or form,
yeah.
some more than others.
Yeah.
And then after that, they just kept us locked up. Mairéad kept trying to negotiate, kept trying to ask for the governor, the head screw, anybody, and they wouldn't deal with us at all.
Totally ignored us.
Just totally ignored us. And I think that initially they left us there for about 24 hours.
Yeah. I mean, there was no toilets in the cells. All you had was a chamber pot, and there was 2 people in the cell. And I mean, it can only hold so much, so we started emptying it under the door.
Under the door.
And they started brushing it back into us.
So then you started to put your excrement on the wall?
There was nothing else to do.
Is cuilim Mairéad ag intin dom, fin na cnílacha, nuair bhíad ar an agóid agus agus ílar gur déras. Is cumáil sin le níomháin sannach íl daoine eile as na níomháin na prisúndaigh ach na hithiige, bhíidir sin stigan sa banabháin is cuilim gur maríochaí taobh mud an ngata. Agus cuilim meis nar cós tréis Vás bhréad. Bhí méid ar ag leart le cúpla duine na hithiigh prisúnas agus den siadar dom scéal fé bhean eile ar scaoileach le níor maríochaí. Dan sé sin lam, mí ní hamháin gur raibh gur mbeidh Mairéad amach agus go bhfuair siise bás ach bhí ar an daobh eile bhí an bhean eile seo marmh agus na hithiigh prisúnas agus. Cai gur rág sé seo rianachra. Ní éadfá blianta mar sin a chur isteach in áit mar seo, gan rud éigent, gan rion éigent a bheith fáca ort. Ins na blianta sin bhí Danny Morrison i bhail cuasaí poblíochta de hin féin. Agus sa ról sin thugad sé cuairt rialta ar na ban frisúnig agus go mórmhór ar bhréad ise ar nói ceanara na brisúnach ag an am.
The visits to Armagh jail were quite gruelling. You had, I don't know, maybe up to 20, 25 women on this no wash protest. It was particularly more difficult for women because of the personal hygiene end of things. And, Mairéad would have come out and she was smelt, her hair would have been greasy, her face would have been, really pale because they weren't allowed exercise, they weren't allowed anything, weren't allowed letters, they'd restricted visits, weren't allowed food parcels, weren't allowed radios, weren't allowed newspapers, weren't allowed pen and paper. And so everything that they used to correspond with us on the outside had to be secreted inside their own body cavities, especially when they were subject to searches.
And there's that famous photograph, it's even done in one of the murals, I think, of her standing behind her bed.
We smuggled in a little camera, and those photographs were taken. They were very emotive because there was this very, very thin, gaunt woman.
During the summertime of 1980, there was talk, what's going to happen next? So a hunger strike was mentioned. I mean, initially, the movement didn't want the hunger strike, and then the men didn't want the women on it. We discussed it among ourselves, and obviously it was something that you didn't take lightly. You had to go away and sit and consider everything. And the men had started on the 27th of October, the 7 men, and then it was decided that us 3, Mairéad, Margaret Nugent and myself, would go on it on the 1st of December.
I remember Mairéad coming over, and I was in a double cell, and she came over to talk. We were through the spy, and I was talking to her, and my memory is it was just teeth. It was just teeth. Her mouth was completely drawn back. There was nothing there, and she was just skin and bones. And I remember going, she'll not last another week.
There's something, I suppose, in the judicial psyche that resiles at the concept of a woman being held in dire circumstances, under enormous physical threat, under huge psychological stress. These things resonate in our society, whether we like it or not. And certainly the potency of that propaganda had a genuine international reach. And Farrell was, as you well know, at the centre of it, formally, personally and structurally. And as such, she became a very credible figurehead for that particular aspect of the Long War.
Cuireadh deireadh leis an céad stalc ocrais ach creideann na príosúnaigh féin ná fuair siad a raibh uathu. Leis ag na cúpla mí, bhí stalc ocrais nó curtha sa tiúlacha. Ach an uair seo, ní raibh na mná ar bhacha páirteachán. Gaoil an rá sin go mór ar bhréad.
And the Northern Ireland office in the last hour has issued a terse one-line statement. Mr. Robert Sands, a prisoner in the Maze prison, died today at 1:17. He took his own life by refusing food and medical intervention for 66 days.
I don't think anything probably affected the North, like Ireland was the death of the hunger strikers. And then as the deaths got on, they were saying, Jesus, they're going to let everybody die? Is this going to be an ongoing? You know, it was so hard to take in that all these men were dying and, you know, nothing was happening. Still and all, the Brits were standing there firm. Everybody wanted the hunger strike over, and everybody wanted the men to live. Nobody wanted them to die.
1981 is the turning point in the whole Troubles. Before that, the Republican movement didn't know if they had any support. They were constantly being accused of having nothing but violence to offer. And, you know, why don't you stand for election and prove what the situation is? When it came to 1981 and Sands got elected with 30,000 votes in Fermanagh, South Tyrone, the Republican movement knew they had support, at least in emotional cases like this. When Sands was dead, there was another by-election, obviously, and Sinn Féin won that by-election. So they stood in every election from 1981, and it's the beginning of the Armalite and the ballot box strategy.
And Mairéad Farrell was very much in support of that. She was released in '86, went to the Ard Fheis in Dublin, but of course she also went back to the IRA.
1986 was a year of enormous ideological transition within the Republican movement. It's a year in which the long-held and often bitterly contested issue of abstentionism was changed at the Ard Fheis. So the decision for Sinn Féin to take part in elections with a view to taking seats was momentous. And for that, they simply had to become more accessible to the general public. They had to put their message to people who otherwise could not be relied upon to simply vote out of some form of tribal allegiance or historical atavism. They had to express their politics, and people like Mairéad Farrell were strongly positioned to do that effectively.
Like, it's taken a long time to get where we are, but I mean, as I was saying earlier, 16 years the struggle's been going on. This is the longest struggle ever in Ireland, and I don't think it'll ever be defeated because the determination is there, and that the youth have, you know, are really into it, and political theories have developed. You know, it's no more just that's what happened in such and such a year. You know, we're not going by that. We've developed our own political theories and with our own ideology, and we seem to know where we're going and exactly what we're doing, and I think we get there.
She was an incredibly strong woman with wall-to-wall credibility within Republican circles. My own view was I thought Mairéad had started Queen's University.
Yeah.
She was doing her university course and she was giving a lot of interviews. So, I mean, to me, I thought Mairéad's activities were...
Strictly in the political area, yeah.
Mairéad had her own ideas about what her role would be. And I think that, you know, because it was still years away from the first ceasefire, Mairéad still saw her role as being, I think, a military one.
Bhí mé treis roiint fad a bhíonna cahabh I tuair tros na rialta ar bhéal ferste. Agus bhí mé le taxos an tachan ar giúnas dóilm. So de churis léach ar an dig agus tháinig mé ar an máir agus dúirt sílam is treisiid. Dúirt Mairéad go raibh tú le gléach a bhríon agus dúirt sí go raibhirthaí farí go raibhirthaí amacht ar feúpla lá ach go méid sé reis an tachan seóin agus léagurthaí an son. Agus an son an deir seachtain na céanna. Bhí mé sa tuige gom féinnig am le lí agus coolla mé ar nócht gur raibh trúr marathe ag Saidóirí na Breataine agus ní a bhéon animnacha tucha gur beirtear agus ban a bháin a bhí gceist. Ní bhis go raibh sé me a reis go dtíon IRA. Agus sé just bunach an méid siar asam. Le níor cuine is riamh gur bhí sé bhí gceist agus bhí sé dochrete. Tá tríis bheith siúil hart an seir feag an lé, siúil na sráidna. Agus tá go fadal seo deire na príomhsráid agus Insas Hall. Gur bin an áit don man na ceoil den Royal Anglian Regiment. Agus má sin éon áit a dagadís le chéile a chéon bhórt chun Marshal síos an bór, chun páirte glachas a seaarmanas ag ahrú an gáard ar the changing of the guard agus ríist le ar darmh. Glach a gleis gur bheith sin spruch an IRA in San Gibraltar.
Farrell would have been what is sometimes been referred to as a red light, a known activist who would be very heavily surveilled by the British and other foreign intelligence agencies. And as such, the decision to use her, whilst I couldn't possibly explain it, the reasons for this are shrouded in the mystery and the secrecy of the political movement. I can only assume that she was chosen on the basis of her reliability and on the assumption that the security countermeasure that they had taken would be sufficient to enable that particular operation to come to fruition.
On that particular operation, it's hard to know what they were thinking, except that it was going to be a spectacular, and it would have been in line with the IRA policy that British forces are not safe anywhere in the world, that this can happen. And so there were attacks in Germany, there were attacks in the Netherlands, and there was a squad operating in mainland Europe which actually carried out a number of shootings. It was a series of ideas about a publicity coup, about damaging the British Army, about making it more difficult for the British to operate. You know, there's so much logistics involved. There would have been a lot of planning in Belfast. Now, Belfast was absolutely riddled with informers. By the time you get to 1987 or 88, there's hardly an operation in Belfast was getting through because there were so many people in the pay of Special Branch or MI5.
Bhí Jeffrey Howen ara Sheentrach rialtas na Breataine gná. Thugus cuairtear fiochan cad ba chuí leis féin actra in Gibraltar.
We'd known for a long time they were on the Spanish frontier. We'd known they were going to Gibraltar. We were known they were in Gibraltar. The decisions from moment to moment and day to day wouldn't all have been taken at the highest level, depending on the nature of the problem, but exactly as you'd expect.
Yes. And would you assume, though, for example, that if the SAS were sent into something like that, that they would not take prisoners? That, I mean, the SAS were a cutting-edge military force.
No, they wouldn't have a priority of killing rather than taking prisoners. But in any situation of that kind, you don't know whether you're likely to be shot before you shoot. You don't know whether you'll be able to get close enough to take prisoners. Every decision has to be taken by close judgment in the nature of the occasion. And a judgment of that kind may require a decision by the commanding officer on the spot.
These people would have been shot at quite close range, and of course it was quite contentious then at the time that they were shot while unarmed. Do you have any feeling about that, or?
No, they were dealing with people who were there with the intention of committing terror, and one had to take the decision should we take action against them before they take action against us?
Rooney start the huskart éarna about Tom King ag an am. Is cum an cainte leis, mar jaall stratéis arm na Bratna, ile an IRA in Gibraltar and Lawson.
The soldiers would have had a briefing that there was a bomb threat, and the plan was to let off a bomb at the changing of the guard, with the band and everything else on parade, and you've got to stop it. I mean that we've got to make sure it doesn't happen. I mean the bomb threat. But I do quite understand the nervousness, the responsibility were on those soldiers, because they would be briefed that they understood there was likely to be a major terrorist attack, and nobody knew where the explosives were, and I think there was real panic.
Either among the SAS or the most highly trained.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, the people
that they panicked.
People, I don't know. No, not that the whole organisation. Is there actually a bomb here? Where is it? Because we don't know where it is.
The rare lagan na Saidori, the Bert Haidor, all anoint. Vider con frogra hoort near yin, maar gur yin Dan McCann. Gníomhaíocht éigean in a láimh, gur dhéon Mairéad rud éigent le mála, agus gur scoil le réad. Mar Sean Savage, idir cúpla céad slát so sa bóthar. Fuair mar legan eile ar fad os na fanéthe a chonig an achtra. Stephen Bullock a bhí thuas an son lena Van Céile agus leanamh sa Framige. Agus Carmen Poeta bhí a féachan na nuas an a hárasáin thuas an son.
I looked out of the window because all of a sudden I had a siren, police siren, and I saw a car going up Smith Dorian and turning up at the roundabout at Victoria Station and coming back down. And then I saw that they stopped abruptly, and there was 3 men coming out. One stayed in the car, 2 jumped over the intersection barrier, and I saw this couple walking, but all of a sudden I see that these men jump with a gun in hand, pointed at them, and start shooting at them. This is a young couple, as far as I could see. It was a young woman and a man. It was frightening, because she fell before, she was falling down, and he was trying to help her. And all of a sudden he dropped too, because the blood started burting out of his chest. I didn't know what to say.
The fact that 3 people have been shot dead when they could simply have been arrested just was lost sight of completely. That was, as far as I was concerned, the most important aspect of this. These people should have been arrested, and that's what they said that's what the soldiers said at the inquest. Our instructions were to arrest these people. But they all admitted that they really gave no challenge before they opened fire.
And you heard no challenge, Stephen?
No, well, I'd say anything. I was too far away. But you see, the point is, McCann, the man I saw being shot, when I gave a statement to the police, I said it looked to me like the shooter was standing about 4 feet away from him. And obviously in that close, he could just grab them and said, right, you're next, right? But in fact, at the inquest, the pathology reports showed that there were actually burns around the entry wounds. So it was actually within the muzzle flash of the gun, so presumably within a foot or less,
So if you're that
close, if you get that close, there's no reason why you can't just grab them and arrest them.
Tá sé an aitibhean sa. Dírig Jaim a gáilt amachtaí fuilte an léisisin. Tá sé cofada san hen is ag fóstá sé beo. Agus na ceisna. Fáchtú na ceisna na gcónaí.
Then came the political bombshell. A remote-controlled examination of the car revealed that it contained no bomb at all.
They carried no weapons or bomb detonators as had been thought, but a car found later in an underground car park in Marbella contained a Semtex bomb and had been rented by Mairéad Farrell using a false name.
Looking back, do you think that perhaps it would have been wiser to try to arrest them, to go for a less military response to what they were doing?
I think it's ridiculous, either then or now, to be having backward-looking questions of that kind. The decisions were taken in light of what was known, suspected and feared at the time, and there was no reason whatsoever to question their legitimacy and wisdom. You simply can't have the luxury of saying, well, let's see what's going to happen.
Bhí Joe Austin ina ifigach sínsreach le Sinn Féin agus besin a heistil go Gibraltar, lidrathar Mairéad, chun cuirp na dróir a thuirt a bhaile.
What happened was that the major airlines refused to carry the cargo, which was the remains. So we then had to charter our own flight. So it was a kind of a 10-day nightmare from the deaths to the burials. Eventually we were able to hire a turbo. All the seats were removed. So I returned home in this turbo with the 3 remains and 1 seat. We flew into Dublin. Of course, there were thousands of people there and people wanted to pay their respect. And then from Dublin we travelled right through. We were met then at the border by the NRUC.
Hui me sús go dtí an sochrid. Agus an sin sa rélig bhí mar an sin bhí idir ré chun an searmána sé hí chuní de ligan síos san luig, agus an sin tháinig na thosaí an rud seo hetarló na búmi bhí Michael Stone sa rélig. Agus in bheith taithní a ghine ar le head a sin agus dar nói bhí mar a feheh, gus bhí duine cinn siad léach lí síos.
Is cuinomsa rihis taobh hir the leach uige. I mean, dair leis trúr a bharú. Bert lads óga ó íocht na bhála stáilm agus Farrell Gellas Bal Anderson. Agus siúrad ná hála riomh hena go raibh fear le gunna agus buama agus é a déanamh únsaí marafach lech socraidir. An tachtan sin ní éanaid arú go dóir, bhí just fé sé códómh. Agus an son na himachta í a hála dá réir, 3 lád argiún, de chur sé sin leis an éadóchas.
Three days later, at the funeral of one of those killed in the cemetery, 2 army corporals who drove into the path of the funeral cortege were pulled from their car and shot dead by the IRA.
Agus is dóla me gnám, is some gur higblína gnám, an dáheh, gacht heh. Go gaffer stop carla se, no go bhfuil mi condol just, le mire, hartorn, I mean, cé gur hála rudí ó fásca níag sanar, agus go raibh rudí ó fásca treist tharlóint. Is dóilm just bhí bás and ag bháis, gacht heh an tachtan sin. An tachtan gorachaí, dar camis riomh me héil camera. Ag an am in Maríochaí, bhí scuiltú fásacha. Mar de réir na bápéirí, ba gruch ghuine, mar dún var a fórdaí, ú fásca is scum evil monsters. I méil ferste nói, bhí an scéal omláin difriúil. Seo daoine a thug a saoil son a muintere. Cabhfuil an íringe an son. Tá fíorchaí anna cabhfuil an íringe. Agus nói brahan an íringe an son. Cadas a bhfuil an tuaitacht. Ní léon áras go mar bíad an is in atmosfér tá níos oscailte. Go bhhétamist féchan siar ar ghaoine. Agus beidir ná gáúin iad a gamanú as sa méad a insid, beidir go bhéta mis iad a chur a ggóhéachs na staire. Tá sulgam bhfuil sé sin fear a ministoilm mon digimidation. If we don't understand history, we're doomed to repeat it. Akarishna, the Gunna Mairéad Farrell, Níl ragra shimpli ar a gceist. Cadahug chuna bá sé. Just tragoid na staire ar lí.